The Fifth Element was more than just a sci-fi movie. Couture was a mess. A movie that put a flying taxi in a neon battle zone and made opera sound like it was from the future. But nothing was easy behind the crazy outfits and loud music. It took years to finish the script. The bad guy and the good guy never shared a scene. And the man who was going to play Ruby Road didn't want to wear the wig. Here are 20 strange things you might not know about The Fifth Element. And in the chaos, there was a diva outfit that fit Luc Besson's wife, just as he was falling in love with someone else. Ask for a multi-pass. This ship doesn't stop for rationality. First, before the flying cars and laser fights, there was only a boy living alone in a little village in France. Luc Besson didn't grow up in a place where art was everywhere. He didn't have famous parents or grandiose plans for Hollywood. He was alone and had a lot of ideas. He started composing what would become The Fifth Element when he was 16. It wasn't a movie idea back then. It was a haven to hide, a world he could go to. He invented up stories like Lilu, Zorgi, the Mondo Shows, and worlds within worlds that made sense when nothing else did. It took more than 20 years, but The Teen's Escape turned into one of the most expensive sci-fi movies ever. And under all the crazy pictures was still that lonely boy, penning his way out. Second, Luc Besson didn't just write a movie, he wrote a whole universe. The first draft of The Fifth Element was not a script. It was a huge story that took place in a galaxy and was almost 400 pages long. It wasn't supposed to be one movie back then. It was a trilogy with 3 full stories, many planets, and dozens of alien species with their own languages, history, and power conflicts. There were political subplots with galactic councils, whole civilizations that never made it past the page, and characters with complex backstories who were turned into background extras. It was crazy, dirty, and too long. But also quite smart. Besson spent years constructing the universe, sketching the cities, naming the creatures, and planning out entire foreign faiths only to explain one prop. But when it was time to shoot, the studios said no. It's too strange, too enormous, and too dangerous. He did the unthinkable, then. He chopped everything down to a single film, a shorter version that was still full of color and commotion, but only a small part of what he had planned. What we saw in theaters was merely a small part of a much larger cosmos. The rest? Lingering in notebooks or floating around in Besson's head, waiting to be used again. Number 3, the future wasn't set in stone, even with a script, because Corbin Dallas's face almost looked drastically different. The studio had a backup plan in case Bruce Willis didn't sign on, Mel Gibson. He was coming off of Braveheart, which made him a world-famous star with box office power. But Besson was unsure. Gibson's energy didn't work. Too serious, too down-to-earth. He needed someone who could deal with pandemonium but still smile through it. Willis said yes, and everything changed. Corbin Dallas was more than just a soldier. He became a hero against his will, with dry humor, poor luck, and a cab full of fate. It would have been darker, cooler, and less enjoyable with Gibson. But with Bruce, it worked. Come on, hand over the money. That AZ-140? No, it's a model of a Charger sock. Yes? It's a good thing for me that it's not loaded. To load it, press the little yellow button. Fourth, Gary Oldman didn't have to audition. He didn't go after the part. He hardly even looked at the script. He did it as a favor for someone. Luc Besson had made Oldman's passion project, Nil by Mouth, a few years before. Oldman answered yes right away when Besson called him for The Fifth Element. But he didn't understand it in private. He later said he didn't know what the tale was about. He still wore a plastic half-helmet, though. He channeled Texas oil barons and cartoon villains to give one of the strangest and most memorable sci-fi performances of the 1990s. He loathed the movie, but fans enjoyed every second of it. 5. The quest was huge. More than 8,000 actresses tried out. Some were well known, while others were just starting out. Elizabeth Berkley, who had just finished filming Showgirls, was one of them. She read with a lot of confidence. Some others strolled in with a sci-fi swagger, thick accents, and studied alien elegance. But none of them felt like they were new. Mila Jovovich then strolled in. She didn't talk loudly or try to take over the meeting, but Luc Besson claimed it hit him right away. She didn't look like she was from anywhere. Not France, not the US, nor even the Earth. She looked like she was from the future. He knew she was Lelu as soon as she talked. Not because she was polished, but because she was pure. They needed someone who didn't try to be different, and Mila was that person. So, out of 8,000 ladies, renowned or not, they picked the one who seemed like a mystery. She didn't only wear the orange straps. She made them famous. The fifth element didn't need to be famous. It needs to be there. Sixth, she had the key to the cosmos on screen. Her own world was slowly falling apart off screen. The extraterrestrial diva that comes on stage halfway through The Fifth Element wasn't just a voice. She was married to Luc Besson. She was a French actress and director named Maïwenn. Tall, beautiful, and covered in layers of blue makeup and foam, Besson cast her as the diva Plavologiana, a mysterious, otherworldly woman whose voice literally gives people the ability to save the universe. She shocked the crew on set. That sound, that movement, that silence. But something else was going on behind the scenes. Besson fell in love with Mila Jovovich while he was making the movie. She was half my age on Wednesdays, fresh to the business, and utterly changed as Lelouch. At first, Besson and Mila didn't have anything in common. Language studies together, long days on set, and screenplay notes at night. But it developed too quickly. When filming was over, Besson had quietly broken up with Maïwenn and was now dating Mila. There was no public controversy, only a private adjustment in orbit. The woman who played the key to saving the planet watched from behind the scenes while her husband moved toward a new kind of fifth element. You can sense it in the final cut. Two women, both bright. Each one unforgettable, but with a different type of grief. 7. Lelouch didn't only talk to her with her eyes, she had her own way of talking. Luc Besson came up with the holy language while writing the script. It is a completely formed alien language with more than 400 unique terms. He and Mila worked on it together, improved it, practiced it, and experimented with it. As their connection off-screen grew, they started utilizing it for something else. Love letters, intimate messages, and words that no one else on set could see. They used it as a secret code, saying it between scenes and writing it down. The love didn't last, but the language did. And in the movie, Mila doesn't say anything that doesn't make sense. It's fluent, rehearsed, and very personal. On TV, they're aliens, in real life, they're close friends. Number 8, Lelu wasn't merely a hero. She was a cyclone of sheer strength, a swirl of fists and feet that seemed to defy gravity. And a lot of the anger on screen came from Mila Jovovich herself. A lot of actors use stunt doubles, but Mila wanted to do every explosive motion that Lelu did. She trained hard, learning how to do fight choreography, wire work, and fast-paced combat with great accuracy. Her hard work turned her into a real-life action hero. Think of the legendary corridor combat scene. Lelu let loose, taking out several armed guards with amazing speed. That wasn't computer graphics. And in that scene, it wasn't a stunt double wearing a wig. Mila was the one. Her dedication went above and beyond what was expected. She twisted her body, kicked with perfect accuracy, and endured long takes. She did a lot of high-energy moves that may have hurt her. The Fifth Element's ultimate weapon had to bleed, fight, and fall with real human grit for it to seem real. Number 9, it wasn't just silly sci-fi stuff. That crazy all-in-one super weapon Zorg has really worked. The flamethrower did, at least. The prop department made a working version of the gun, complete with working flame jets. And when they tried it out, it almost burned down the whole set. One blast went too far. The flames licked the ceiling. Crew members ran around. The fire extinguishers came out. No one got hurt, but the message was clear. This movie didn't take any chances. The weapons were even dangerous. Besson loved it that way, too. 10. They weren't slow because of how they looked. They were slow because they were melting. The Mondoshawan aliens in the opening sequence had 80-pound suits, thick foam, no ventilation, no cooling systems. They moved slowly through old hallways, not to make it more dramatic, but because the actors inside were about to get too hot. One actor passed out from the heat and had to be taken out of the costume in the middle of the action, given water, and stabilized. They were able to finish the shot, but only just. What looked like graceful alien choreography was actually survival, one hefty stride at a time. Hobbit. Number 11, Ruby Road wasn't very subtle. Leopard print, a sparkly microphone, and shots that could freeze time. The costume, not the performance, was the most absurd aspect. Jean-Paul Gaultier made it to be tight, loud, and totally useless. It was 50 pounds heavy, had a stiff spine, and couldn't bend at all. Chris Tucker couldn't sit down, lean forward, or even breathe very well. He didn't sit down between takes, though. He leaned against walls, stood in corners, and sweated through whole days of shooting without a break, but you would never know it. He is mayhem personified on television, bouncing, shouting, and stealing scenes with every breath. This is because sometimes the loudest voice in the cosmos comes from someone who can't even sit down. Most movies fake it. Number 12. Not the fifth ingredient, but quick cuts, CGI, and camera tricks. That wasn't just small models or a green screen when the Divas concert hall blew up. It was a full-scale explosion. Done in front of an audience, in a real building. It was the biggest explosion ever filmed inside at the time. One shot, no resets, and a calculated risk. They had a lot of cameras, barriers that could fall down, and fire marshals ready to go. The scene would be lost forever if anything went wrong. And when it went off, it was perfect, crazy, and dangerous. A real explosion that became a visual legend. This notion really caught fire in a movie full of crazy ideas. We have to identify the leader because Mongolers won't fight without him. Get someone to talk to them. Number 13. Hero, villain, two icons, and they never meet, not even by chance. In the same scenario, Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman, Corbin Dallas and Zorg, never meet. Not due of the schedule, but because of choice. Luc Besson made it that way. He intended the hero and villain to fight through ripple effects instead of directly. Their pathways go around each other. Get in the way. But never hit each other. It's not common, it's dangerous, and it works in a strange way. The suspense builds regardless, and the plot succeeds without the usual showdown. Sometimes the strongest enemy is the one who doesn't even know you're there. 14. Most sci-fi happens in the dark. Dark ships, metal hallways, and melancholy lighting. Luc Besson didn't want any of that. He stated that the future didn't have to be frigid. It may be loud, messy, and full of life. He illuminated most of the action scenes in open daylight instead of dark interiors. Taxi chases in the open air. Gunfights in clean white hallways. Orange blasts across clouds that seem like gold. It was a huge risk to show every detail, outfit, and effect in full light. But that was the point. He wanted you to see the future clearly, not squint at it. He broke one of the oldest laws in science fiction by doing this. He didn't make it gloomy, he made it bright. I tell him she's going. The second one is from my lawyer. I told him he was going. You're fired. Before the leopard print, before the shouts, and before Chris Tucker stole the show in a cloud of glitter and turmoil, Prince played the part of Ruby Road. From the start, Luc Besson wanted him. The voice, the energy, and the cool, untouchable gender-bending attitude. Prince was interested. He said yes to a meeting. He enjoyed the script. He agreed. After that, he noticed the outfits. Jean-Paul Gaultier made Ruby's whole ensemble. There were lace, mesh, plunging necklines, and high-arched heels, fabrics that clung, colors that screamed louder than the character, yet somehow Prince said no. He believed it was too feminine and too excessive, even for him. He decided not to go through with it. So Besson went to Chris Tucker, who had a very different energy. Younger, faster, and crazier than sultry. Tucker took the part and ran with it. He combined Michael Jackson's dance skills with Prince's approach and made Ruby Road into a high-speed scream machine. But you can still sense what almost happened deep down. Tucker wasn't written for Ruby, he was written for royalty. And in another world of movies, Prince is still singing. 16. It was meant to be Besson's best work. The most expensive movie ever made in France. A crazy mix of opera, fashion, sci-fi, and anarchy. People booed when it first showed at Cannes. People who didn't like it stated it was stupid, shallow, and excessively loud. But something odd happened. People, especially kids, liked it. They didn't care if it made sense. They used Ruby Road as an example. They were captivated with Lelou's hair. They kept going back to the Divas opera scene. The reviews died down, but the fans got louder every year. And now, The Fifth Element is a cult masterpiece, and its oddness is what makes it so. What Cannes turned down, the world accepted. 17. Most movies put clothes on their protagonists. The Fifth Element put clothes on everyone in the galaxy. Luc Besson didn't want regular sci-fi gear. He didn't want clean suits or space armor that had been used before. He wanted clothes that communicated a story. He called in a famous person, Jean-Paul Gaultier. The French fashion icon made more than just a few great outfits. He made more than 1,000 costumes by hand. Each alien race has its own style, regulations, textiles, and shapes. The Mondoshawan were old and armored, like priests covered in pyramids. The Mangalores were mercenaries who were angry and full of metal, grit, and turmoil. Even the background figures, who were only in the shot for a few seconds, were dressed in unique costumes. Drivers of taxis wore reflective clothing. Flight attendants wore corsets made of neoprene that fit tightly. The security personnel appeared like bouncers from a different planet. It wasn't just about fashion, it was about establishing a world, and every scene had a part in it. You didn't need to explain anything in The Fifth Element, you only had to look. You witnessed a universe that was dressed to kill. 18. The huge spacecraft in the first scene weren't just science fiction, they were legendary. Luc Besson wanted the Mondoshawan ships to look like they came from the past, so they were built using Egyptian geometry. Rounded tops, thick bases, and shapes taken from carvings in temples and sun worship. The thought? That aliens might not have simply built the pyramids, they might have been the pyramids. The movie connected spiritual myths to sci-fi shows, using silent symbolism to connect the past and the future. In The Fifth Element, even the spaceships had secrets. 19. It looked like computer-generated imagery, CGI, but it wasn't, at least not all of it. Those huge cityscapes with neon buildings and flying cars? They began with dozens of tiny models, hand-built towers, little traffic lanes, and layered lighting to give the figures dimension. They used motion control cameras to film them, exactly like in the first Star Wars movie, and then they applied computer effects to make them look real. The mix was perfect, so genuine that you could touch it and so fake that you could dream about it. The future was still made by hand in a movie that loved texture and turmoil. 20 French studios paid for it, a French visionary directed it, and it was made in France. The fifth segment, on the other hand, was filmed fully in English, not for flair but for survival. Luc Besson realized that he needed to show the world this strange, colorful, and expensive movie. He recruited British personnel, used American actors, and filmed the whole thing at Pinewood Studios in London. At the time, it was the most costly movie France had ever made. But to reach a lot of people, it had to talk like a big hit movie. And somehow, it worked. Extra fact. It wasn't meant to be a catchphrase, it was just a line to throw away. Leloup says that over and over, yet it's wrong. Not perfect English, but plenty of meaning. And for some reason, it stuck. People started quoting it, copying it, and making memes out of it before memes were even a thing. The word is used in a lot of video games these days, like Borderlands, Cyberpunk 2077, and many more. Not as a plot device, but as a way to honor someone. A digital wink to one of the strangest cult masterpieces in sci-fi. 5 different ways to say one word, and it's still unforgettable. Because sometimes all you need is a multipass. It was too loud, too weird, too brilliant, and too French. Fans knew what to do with the fifth ingredient, but critics didn't. They held on to the turmoil, learned the lines, fell in love with a movie that seemed like it was done on a dare, and somehow it turned out wonderful. Luc Besson started writing it when he was 16, but it never actually stopped getting bigger. It still lives on in conventions, video games, fan tattoos, and dreams that are too bright to be real. A cult sci-fi movie that isn't flawless, but on imagination that wouldn't let go. Leave a comment if this one is still stuck in your head. Let us know what crazy, iconic movie we should watch next. The Fifth Element didn't follow any rules, though, because the world is full of them. It just lighted a match and let it burn.